welcome to a Greater Reality Healing, Living, and Helping online meeting. This program helps people take higher energy paths during their earthly experience. Doing that, especially after big changes that seem like losses, can create quantum leaps in your learning, growth, and service to others. Over time, this transformational journey can help you adopt a worldview based on the great news about the nature of reality and live accordingly, whatever that means to you. Experience shorter and lightened grieving when loved ones change worlds. Fine-tune yourself physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually or energetically. Become more aware of, benefit from, and share life's silver linings. Create the greatest life you have envisioned. You refers to your soul or consciousness. Fulfill your highest purposes and help make our world a better place. The evidence-based information and holistic resources in this program can help you to do this. But note, this program is not designed to replace traditional medical or psychotherapeutic care. 3 30-minute parts of each online meeting include presentation, breakout groups, and Q&A. Breakout groups are not to be recorded, but the rest is so that others can benefit from them. Discussions during meetings are confidential. You can share what occurred, but not from whom. If you're concerned about anonymity, just show your first name in your Zoom window and block your video image. YouTube links for class recordings are under Greater Reality Programs at soulproof.com and soulphone.org. Subscribe to those newsletters for updates and more. I'd now like to introduce our presenter, Mark Pitstick, MADC. Mark has over 50 years of experience helping many people in hospitals, pastoral counseling settings, mental health centers, and holistic health clinics. To learn more, visit soulproof.com/about. Dr. Pitstick's articles and interviews with experts are free at soulproof.com/articles and soulproof.com/radio show. His ebooks, audiobooks, audio programs, and documentary films are free at soulproof.com/shop.
Thank you very much, Allison, and welcome everyone. It's indeed an honor, a sacred privilege to remind you what you already know. You know, no matter, I know some of you are going through some tough times right now, but you each are eternal, wise, infinite, powerful souls who are one with the one and part of Source. But of course, it's part of the earthly experience to forget that to varying degrees for good reasons. But you have a chance now to remember more. And if you just glimpse a little more of the big picture of life, then things start making more sense. And you remember that these are exquisite opportunities to become a sage. And SAGE is an acronym for serve others, have adventures, grow, and enjoy. So let's dive in. And if you can enable your video, please, we appreciate it. It's much better to see you. So kudos for opening to a higher energy way. Again, no matter what you're going through. And that's a good overview of what we're doing, a higher energy way. You know, there are different paths you can take in life. What's the Led Zeppelin song? You know, there are 2 paths in life. And so you can take the high road or the low road, like the old song goes. And this is about taking the higher energy path for healing, for living, and then helping others in our world. And starting with this class, or this month's class, we're combining those, healing, living, and helping. And here's why. They're so interconnected, really. And for many people, they need to heal some first before they can create the greatest life of their dreams and before they can help others share their greatest gifts, make our world a better place. However, it can work the other way around. For some people, but fine-tuning their life, improving their life is immensely healing, and then that creates extra vitality and energy for helping others. Also, helping others in our world is a powerful route to healing yourself and creating the greatest life of your dreams. We've seen so many cases of that, especially with the Helping Parents Heal organization. these parents are, beside themselves. I mean, we have one mom, all 5 of her children passed. What the hell? And people with multiple loved ones who changed world. One mom came to one of my webinars, and her 2 children, husband, and pets all changed worlds from carbon monoxide poisoning when she was out of the house. And you could see just the shock and pain in her face. It had been about a year for her. But her question, how can I help other people who are going through tough times? I've learned a lot in this last year, and I want to share that. And I'm like, oh my God, you're my new hero. I mean, that's just amazing. So that's one of the routes. When you don't think you can go through another day, get out and help other people and notice the uptick in energy. And your loved ones, your ancestors in the next realm, cheering you on, rooting you on. So it helps everyone. So I've got about 20 minutes here, and I'll cover highlights of the first 3 keys to healing, helping, and living. So in the first class, if you've not watched it yet, be sure to visit Greater Reality Programs. It's a top tab at soulproof.com or soulphone.org. Excuse me, the websites Allison just mentioned, and watch that class. So in the first class, we provide an overview, an introduction to all this. And a lot of this is based on what's called the great news that Dr. Schwartz and I compiled when we wrote our book, Greater Reality Living. And that's the second key. So I'll talk more about the great news. But when you understand the great news, that is how life is really set up, versus relying on archaic, erroneous, and fear-based teachings in many cases, then you realize it's all good. I mean, there's not a bad day. A dear friend of mine, Ed Sarno, had a severe heart attack, had a profound near-death experience. And I said, well, what are some of the things you learned, Ed? And he said, well, the biggest was that you can't go wrong. He said, if I die tonight, happy day, I'm back in the light where I was. And if I live to 100, happy day. He said, it's all good, it's all God. And that's what, gurus and religious teachers and those who started religion, or religions were based on their teachings, have tried to tell us. But now we have a lot more evidence from quantum physicists, scientists like Gary Schwartz and others that provide strong evidence for that. So we don't have to go by faith, and it's a whole new day then how we live. Again, no matter what our past or current circumstances. So knowing how life is really set up then helps you think, speak, and act in higher energy ways. And to understand what I mean by higher energy, see article number 108 at soulproof.com/articles, article 108. So this is based in part on the work of David Hawkins, MD, PhD, who objectified with fine muscle testing the energy, the power behind different energies and emotions, ways of being. So high energy ways would be things like peace, joy, love, gratitude. And lower would be things like anger and hopelessness, despair, and so on, which can lead to suicide if a person's staying in that too long. So it turns out that we have a choice. And again, this would all be just pie in the sky, talking out my hat, wherever the saying is, if we didn't have so many people who have demonstrated this. When I started working with people when I was 19, and I would occasionally meet somebody who's just amazing. They'd be paralyzed from the waist down or from the neck down, or they would have been raped or went blind, and all sorts of. I met maybe one a year, and I was like, wow, those are just stellar individuals. But then the more I got involved in the helping community, the more I realized there are many, many near-death experiences, for example. So many of them come out of that just awakened. I mean, they're fireballs. They saw the light, literally, and they come back a totally different person, inspired. But then again, with these helping parents heal parents. And that's why it works so much, because collectively, we, and I mean also 15 percenters, people have intermediate to advanced levels of soul evolution, we really can turn things around on our planet. And if you watch too much news, you may think, oh, everything's going to hell in a handbasket, it's hopeless. But in fact, we're that close to making a turnaround. You know the saying, it's always darkest just before the dawn. And that's where we're at right now. So that's why what you're doing is so important for you, for those in your sphere of influence, but also for our world. So that's the vision for this. And thank you for being here and being part of this, because right now you might be attending because you need it personally, but it may not be too long before you can become part of the solution. You know, Mark, how can I help? We'll have caring listeners in the future, like we have with HPH. We'll have in-person local groups. And so just keep that in mind, that as you heal, here you are, you're connected with this early on. Just think about how you can not only heal, but help. So again, I'm going to mention the first three keys to doing that: optimally healing, living, and helping others. And again, I'm just painting with broad strokes here. The videos and the articles that cover all this are in articles number 72, 82, and what happened to my brain? 119. All right, so it's all available. And let me just go ahead and share this, since we have a few newcomers, so you can see these, where you can find these things. So here we are, we're at soulproof.com. And here are the articles. Not 132 of them now. Somebody stop me, please. And the last one, yeah, resources I created with Elizabeth Wayson, resources to support and heal parents after a child passes on. This was a fun one. 10 ways to help time heal all your wounds. By the way, I don't, people thank me and, oh, that's incredible what you're doing. I'm like, I'm mainly just the guy that pushes the keys. I'll be out working out or whatever, and I'll get a download. Like the phrase, time heals all wounds. And I was thinking about that. I was like, is that really true? Because I know people who pass and they hadn't healed all their wounds. So as in many things, we need to modify a bit. Time can heal all wounds depending on what you do after the wounds. So here's 10 ways to help time heal all your wounds. Anyway, those are the articles. Hear about the Soul Phone Project, and then there's also soulphone.org to learn about this. Again, this is going to change everything. Dr. Schwartz and his team are working diligently to do two main things, hopefully late autumn. Announce officially after his journal paper, Scientific Proof of Life After Death, and then demonstrating at least practical technology showing communication with post-material persons, that is, those who have passed on. So this is one of the, what I call the 8 developments that I described in article number 125 that really set up each individual and our world for rapid healing and improvement and heaven on earth. Here's the Greater Reality Program top tab, and this then has a video that describes the whole program and information how to join. But then the sub-tabs, here's where you find the recordings of past classes. And so here's for June and the first one in July. Then the videos for Greater Reality Healing, Living, and Helping. Say helping, so there's some information about this, and then the 3 videos. So now you know how to navigate all this. Under shop, the free books, ebooks, audiobooks, audio programs that Allison mentioned, all there for you. Also the Soul Proof documentary film, and then also radio shows 25, what we considered to be the best of two different radio shows I had, especially the first go around. I mean, Wayne Dyer, Brian Weiss, Michael Newton, founder of Life Between Lives area. I mean, there's just so much to learn in here. So now you know about all that, and I wanted to share that. All right, so the first key, use conscious language. So important because the words that you use, your language, shapes how you think and what you believe. And then your thoughts and beliefs, as you know, affect how you feel and act. This woman I mentioned that emailed me, I guess, with the moderators, she's in such depths right now, and she kept saying, no one cares about her husband passed, and her husband was such an integral part of her life. And she says, no one wants to be with me now that he died. No one cares. No one wants to be around me. I'm like, hold on. You just used a universal word 3 times. I learned this from Tony Robbins years ago. Whenever you say things like never, no one, everyone, that's wrong. And so, there's a lot of ways for her to heal, but one is expand your tribe, go to places with more open-minded, open-hearted people. And that's in article number 116, Relationships for More Evolved People. But part of what I'm working on with her is your words, because right now she thinks, she's in darkness and she's seriously considering suicide. So that's why we need to shift them. Here's an example of how that can help, and I've heard this from a lot of parents. Your loved ones who have passed, and we're talking about people and pets here, because we understand in this program that for some people, they're closer to pets than most people, because, they have unconditional love and all their energy and caring and so on. But your loved ones who have changed worlds live in a realm characterized by higher energies that we mentioned: peace, joy, love, gratitude. If you're stuck in using lower energy words, thoughts, feelings, then you can't communicate with them. We know without a fact, and we have Mark Anthony on right now. He's one of the best to relaying information from people who have passed on, detailed information. We know without a doubt that loved ones who have changed worlds want to continue to be part of your family. They want to communicate. They're sending you messages. But the thing is, you can't be a good receiver if you're on a different wavelength. So it's almost like they're on FM 111 and you're on AM 87. You're just not going to be able to transmit to them and receive them. So one of the many benefits of choosing higher energy emotions, thoughts, words, actions. And again, doing this is not just positive thinking, but it's now based on what we know about the nature of reality. So it just makes sense. So 2 examples of conscious living. If I ever use the word lost, referring to a loved one who passed on, I'll use quotation marks because you don't really lose them. They're right there in our Soul Proof documentary. We interviewed a lot of people who had near-death experiences and afterlife contacts, religious revelatory experiences, etc. So one of the people we interviewed was a spiritualist minister, and we were talking about how ironic it is that people think they lost a loved one when the loved one could be right beside him. He said, yeah, it's almost kind of funny. He said, I recently went to a funeral and the family's all hovering around the casket, crying, talking about how much they're going to miss him. And I'm across the room talking to the guy. And, you hear something like that said so plain, straightforward. It's like, wow, yeah, that's right. He's in the room. So the scientific and clinical evidence that now proves life after death is described in articles number 1 and 60. Again, these are all free at soulproof.com. And also many firsthand experiences, what we call experiential evidence, corroborates what the scientific and clinical evidence points to. Life and love are forever. And so I discuss firsthand experiences in article number 115. And that's part of, by the way, what we encourage you to share if you want in the breakout groups. Because Dr. Schwartz and I, when we first met, started working together 9 years ago and designing our book, we said, so many people have firsthand experiences, but they minimize them. Or after a while, if they don't write them down, they seem imaginary, like, oh, that must have been a daydream. They discount them when in fact, people are glimpsing, seeing, hearing, feeling, knowing loved ones, more of life than generally meets the eye. So feel free to share. That's one of the things we want to do in the breakout groups. Another term I recommend adopting is to use earthly experience instead of life. Like people, I'll say his earthly experience ended instead of his life ended, because life is forever. So here's the saying: an earthly experience is very brief, while life is forever. Huge distinction. Also, using the word experience reminds you that what you're perceiving as reality is actually pretty wrong. Apparently, solid human incarnation is mostly an optical delusion. It's much more like a brief virtual reality experience than most people can imagine. So again, earthly experience versus, this is a solid actual event. So what seems to be happening is a combination of your brain-based consciousness and your transcendent source of consciousness. The former thinks that only what is real is what the five senses can detect, whereas the latter, your transcendent source of consciousness, your real self, your soul, knows that it's part of the greater reality. It's one with the one and part of source, as so many near-death experiencers come back and say. Your transcendent source of consciousness knows that this earthly experience is a totally safe, meaningful, and magnificent adventure amidst forever. So again, the more you know that, the more you can deal with whatever. I mean, I've had patients that wrote me and said, I just found out I have terminal cancer. I just found out I have Parkinson's disease. And they say, yeah, on one hand it sucks. On the other hand, I know I got this. I'm an eternal soul. I probably chose to go through this for meaningful reasons. What a major difference. And the more you can do that, the more others around you will get it. And then boom, we're there. What is heaven on earth? Thy kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. So that's why it's so important to regularly quiet your brain using centering practices, which I discuss in article number 77, and quiet your brain so that your real self can come to the fore. So suggested action steps for doing this, adopting more conscious language, are discussed under key number 1 in article number 82. Key number 2, internalize the great news. The great news is listed in article number 119, little things like no one really dies, you'll see your loved ones again and can now, you're part of source energy. But there's a difference between intellectually knowing that and deeply internalizing it. And I have found over the years that many people don't internalize it because of past abuses and wounds, misinformed preaching, wrong teaching fear-based by religion, especially more fundamentalist ones, and needless fears, which turns out all fears are needless when you understand what's really going on. So all that can block you from internalizing the great news and living accordingly. So 2 audio programs I recommend that you start using to release these wounds, misinformed teachings from the past, and fears are my holistic breathing technique, and that's described in article number 70. 45 minutes of deep, noisy, diaphragmatic breathing. The most powerful way I know to release all this, to get clear. You'll cry your heart out, you'll pound the mattress, you'll cuss, you'll yell, and then you're free. It's a cathartic technique, but one of the best I know. And then also my love, acceptance, and forgiveness technique. LAF is the acronym, LAF, described in article number 40, And again, the free audio program available to love, accept, and forgive others who abused you, because we are not in a point in this human form, we're not in a point of accurately deciding what is good and what is bad. For example, the person who abused you may be a soulmate, could be a contrast soul, and you ask them to do that. So pretty silly to hate them forever. And I talk about contrast souls in article number 67. Also, you, especially if you're more intermediate advanced soul, may have chosen to go through that abuse to let these beginner souls learn how they shouldn't act. How can they know until they do that? And so you volunteered out of love. So lots of reasons to forgive others. Now, that doesn't mean you have to condone what they did. That doesn't mean you want to be friends with them. That doesn't mean you want to see them in the afterlife. But let it go, because you're the one who's hurt the most. So make sure you use that technique. And then also for yourself, because so many of us are so self-critical. We hold ourselves responsible. I actually work on that some myself. Like, damn, when I was 20 years old, I should have known better. I should have seen this. Well, hindsight's 2020, right? So love, accept, and forgive. So action steps for that under key number 2 in article number 82. And finally, the third key, listen to your inner wisdom, that still small voice within that knows. If we listen to it, and it's a little tricky because, again, the brain is so overwhelming, the brain kicks in, well, here's what I think you ought to do. Keep in mind, the brain perceives much less than 1% of reality, so we take its input with a grain of salt. It's useful in some areas, but worthless in others. So I spent a lot of years asking people, how do you discern your inner wisdom? How do you discern the voice of your soul, the voice of spirit within? And I discuss that in article number 20, discerning your inner wisdom. But here's what I learned. First of all, the input from your transcendent source of consciousness comes in just before the brain. So for me, the soul's message is short and sweet. It's just like, you should do this. It's quieter, it's calmer, it's short. And then the brain comes in with its full analysis. And then the other thing is to make sure that you quiet the brain on a regular basis. We mentioned centering practices, prayer, meditation, time in nature, whatever helps you get in touch with that inner wisdom. It often shows up for people at 3 in the morning. I keep a notepad and pen by my bed. I wake up, I say, I bet you it's 3 o'clock, yep, boom, or thereabouts, and I write it down real quick and then go back to sleep. So a good way to catch those. Immediately upon awakening, the same thing. In the shower for some people, I think the water helps the chi from that. So the other way to discern your inner knowing, using my Ask Your Soul, Angels, and the Light audio program as described in article number 70. By the way, I know this is a lot of information. I'm sharing it quickly, but that's why we have the recordings posted. So you can watch it again, take notes, and then start with action steps. And at this point, we'll have a chance to ask any questions you want or discuss anything you want. It can be what we covered in the presentation, what transpired in the breakout groups, or anything wide open.
Yeah, may I ask a question?
Of course.
What I believe is that we all have a karmic structure, karmic information. And when we go to the other life, there is, you take with you all this karmic information which might not be yours. I believe that we have karmic information also on Earth, which is not mine. Let's talk about myself. We discussed in the breakout group about helping those who are in the other life. I'm busy with energetic work, and somehow my intuition tells me that I can help my wife in the other life to dissolve this karmic information which is not hers. Do you ever have spoken about that, Mark, with some people?
Yeah, great question. And I actually would like to hear from others on this as well. Um, there's the idea of the collective consciousness of Earth. And so, yes, that could travel on with you. Not that it's your karma per se, but that you were in touch with, you were sympathetic about that. And so, as you, let's say for you, Paul, as you pass on, you'll be very clear what's your baggage, what's your karma, what do you need to work on versus what did you kind of bring with you. And I think that can be sifted away pretty quickly, sifted through. I will share one thing. A fellow I'll call Tom was very close with his cousin, and Tom's about 78 now, and they were very close. His cousin went to Vietnam, and everything after that, and ended up dying in his 20s, a heroin addict. But very quickly, as that close relationship continued with Tom and his cousin, so Tom can just get quiet and talk with him very clearly. Well, this is years ago. I put out my article, number 4, When a Loved One Passes by Suicide. And Tom didn't even know that I put out this article. But his cousin said, Tom, I know you're in touch with Mark. Please thank him for his article he just put out. That helped a lot of us in the afterlife who are still dealing with remnants of this. Even though the big picture's there and we can see it, physical death isn't instant nirvana or enlightenment. We're still going through that. Damn, I shouldn't have done that. I wish we hadn't done that. I hurt so many people. And he said the article Mark put out created energetic waves that helped us in the afterlife. And I was like, my God, I never even thought of that. So, that collective unconscious, karmic consciousness can work both ways, for positive or negative. But I'm pretty much butchering that. So I would like to hear from some other wise ones out there.
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah, well, who else wants to pitch in, please? On that one. Or ask another question.
I was just going to add to that, Mark, in that when we're in our breakout, I was talking about how I was going through a thing where I wanted to help other people, and I do automatic writing to be in touch with my deceased daughter, and that she told me that spirits on the other side follow us in our life to learn from us. So they are still evolving, and they're evolving through our experiences. And I thought that was pretty profound because, I had this old archaic concept that once you pass, your enlightenment just comes automatically, and that's not how it is.
Mm-hmm.
There's a place of healing, and then there's spirits that can help you in certain ways. And we also talked about how our deceased ones don't seem to be around us as much as when they first passed.
Mm-hmm.
And my daughter told me that, they get involved in projects and they're busy just like we are.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting to have your preconceived notions juxtaposed and think differently, and that we can still help them in our current life.
Yeah, and they're learning through us. Yeah, I love that first point of yours, that our post-material loved ones can learn from us. They can see life, through our eyes as well. I wonder if we have a highly evidential mediums here named Mark Anthony who would like to share a bit about that. You're muted.
My opinion differs from that because I work a lot with the collective consciousness, and think of your soul as a drop of water. And so when that drop of water leaves our brain and plunges into the eternal sea of souls, the collective consciousness, and I refer to that as the electromagnetic soul, which is the EMS, which is my theory, and how the souls interconnect with other spirits, interconnect with other spirits, interconnected, so on and so forth, which is how they're able to transmit to us information that far exceeds the scope of anything that they knew here in this world. And yes, they are part of our lives. Do they learn from us? I believe that they can, but they're also, because of, gosh, this would take a very long explanation, but they can see past, future, and present events, which is why a lot of times spirits will bring up things in readings that don't make sense until it happens. But I want to address what Joan said, is they don't seem to be around us as much later on. That's not necessarily true. What happens is right after the death of a loved one, we're like exposed nerve endings, and we're so emotional. Our guard is down, and so we're beginning to pick up, and we're hypersensitive to their electromagnetic frequency. Over time, as emotions stabilize, our defenses come back up, and they're still around us, but also the way they communicate with us changes. Like initially, we may see feathers or coins or this or that, and then over time, maybe you'll see a number sequence, or then you'll start getting a feeling, because they're working with us too. So they never abandon us, but you have to realize they move at the speed of light, which is 186,282 miles per second. So in the time it took me to do this, all your spirits could have been back and forth to the moon about 14 times. That's how fast they move. So do they need to be hanging out with us all day? They're zipping in and out. And Joan, you're absolutely correct. They're working on things, projects that we can't even begin to comprehend. So it's extremely complex. And no one has all the answers. We have insights, because how can we, as living in the material world, possibly understand what it's like to be pure energy that moves at light speed, that's able to be interconnected with this incredible cosmic internet? It's like what you're saying in the beginning, and I'm not going to divulge anything, because I understand with the cell phone, but things will come through from some of these luminaries throughout history. Now, I may know who they are from my study of history, but they'll start bringing through technical data I don't know. And then you or Dr. Gary Schwartz will go, oh my God, that's what we're working on, And that's because, as part of the collective, they're patched into all types of information. People tend to think that spirits are just invisible humans with our same limitations. They're not. I've done over 15,000 readings. I've communicated with hundreds of thousands of spirits, and it's pretty darn amazing what they know. All right, so I'll take a step back now.
Excellent. Thank you. Actually, I was just waving see you later to Andrew. Gina,
Oh,
yes.
I thought he was raising his hand to go up next.
No.
There's Gina. Are you okay?
Hi, Mark. So my question is for Mark. After my daughter passed, for the first week or so, I just had this physical sensation of just all of my cells vibrating, or just something. I didn't know what it was, and I'm just wondering if that is related to what you were talking about the electromagnetic frequency.
Yeah, the aftermath of the death of a loved one is very challenging. We're all probably here familiar with Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's The 5 Stages of Grief, but there's 2 phases of grief. There's shock, and then there's trauma. Now, shock is right when it happens. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. I mean, it's when you feel like you're watching yourself going through the motions. You can't eat, you can't sleep. You're literally going out of your mind. And shock will fade anywhere from about 2 weeks to a month, but then the trauma sets in, and that is no picnic either. And that's what we live with for the rest of our lives. And so in the shock phase, it can make us that exposed nerve ending where we're highly susceptible to electromagnetic frequency. But it can have a flip side. A flip side of the coin is that because you're so mired in grief, you're also creating a block to it. So it depends on the person. The thing about grief is there's one no size fits all. And then when you get to the trauma phase, that death changes your life. The only choice we have on it is how you react to it. And as a former, prosecutor and criminal offense lawyer, I've seen a lot of people take their grief and they start doing drugs and turn to alcohol and impulsive behaviors. And that will lead, I call it the grief, crime, grief. Your grief leads to behaviors where you get behind the car wheel of a car when you're drunk and then you kill somebody else. Grief, crime, grief. We want to break that cycle. And everybody here, you're taking the other path, which is learning about your spirituality, exploring your feelings, educating yourselves, expanding, connecting with other people. Now that is a choice you've all made, and that is the positive choice.
Excellent. Thank you, Mark. And Gina, we may come back to you, dear, if we have the time. Other questions at this point? Looks like we have the time. So Gina, Gina was in our class, Ask the Soul Doctor class last week with Helping Parents Heal, and she shared, well, go ahead and just briefly share the struggle you're going through now with your daughter and raising grandkids.
Well, just that my daughter was 31 and she left behind a 1-year-old and a 6-year-old. And I guess it's hard for me to see things in the news like, mothers abusing their children. And why are they still here? And my daughter, who just wanted her children so badly, why is she gone? It's hard for me to understand that.
Well, but what I'd like to address is the part where you're saying, and how long ago did your daughter pass?
It'll be 3 years in November.
Okay, so it's been a while, but so you've got the passing of your daughter, but then also raising little ones, which is a big challenge going on. But you're saying you're still wrestling with why did she pass? She loved her kids so much.
Sure, Dr. Pitstick, I was just saying in the breakout group that the day after my daughter passed, my granddaughter asked me, why did my mommy have to die? I didn't know what to tell her.
Yep. And I shared with you and asked the soul doctor, the quick question is, it's because it was your daughter's soul's time to go back home. There's a beautiful, elegantly set up orchestration for this that's not apparent from a human view. It's quite likely what I call a soul setup. It allowed you to grow in ways that you wouldn't have allowed our kids. They're going to have a different life since they didn't have a mom. But I would like to, we've been looking for answers for Gina on that. Moderators or others, what would you like to share with her, please? Your understandings of that.
I don't have the exact experience as Gina. Gina and I are also in Helping Parents Heal, parents who have lost children. No, lost is not the right word, whose children have passed from cancer or illness. So we're in that group together as well. And so we do share that commonality. And in our breakout group today, it's something that I tend to say a lot. That my daughter took one for the team. And it seems to resonate with a lot of people when I kind of say it like that, because when these things happen that don't make any sense in our human experience, my daughter was university student studying nutrition science because she wanted to help cancer patients. She was wholesome, didn't drink, didn't smoke, the most wholesome person I know, healthy person, and she passed from cancer at age 23. It just doesn't make sense. So that's where I have to really lean into. She took one for the team. She cracked us wide open. We are doing things in our lives now that were affected by her passing that we wouldn't have done otherwise. And it is those silver linings. It's really hard in the human perspective, and the emotions take over. And I mentioned in the breakout group that I know logically I do have that whisper of soul that Mark was talking about, that I know is soul, but the body does something different. I'm crying, I have panic in my chest, and then I have that whisper of soul, but no, you know the truth, you know the reality, you know the bigger picture. And it's this conflict that keeps happening, but I just keep coming back to Gina, your daughter took one for the team. There are these things that she is, like Mark always says, cheering you on and everybody around you because of the growth that is happening right now, and what your children are going to, what her children are going to accomplish because of this adversity and all of these things. So, I don't exactly have your situation, but I just, if you can kind of anchor into that, she is that shining light that is helping all of us get better, be better, do better, and be here. We're being here where we wouldn't be on this call learning about all of these amazing things and ways to live and being of service had this not happened. And yes, I think we'd all rather go back to sleep than be awakening to this and have them with us. But that's not going to happen, and that's not possible in this earthly experience. So Beautiful. We're here.
Thank you, Kat. We and this take one for the team. It's limitless, the impact of that. And that's what Article 119 is, helping others and our world. And that really launched in my brain at the Helping Parents Heal conference last August. I was giving a talk, maybe 400 people, and I glimpsed up. I just looked up and I saw thousands of smiling faces, from little infants to school kids to young adults, smiling, applauding. And because I was talking at the time about, is it possible that there's a meta benefit from this? All these kids who pass and all these parents who are struggling with it, but could it be that taking it for the team in this sense means there's enough parents, enough people say, okay, enough. We are not going to let big corporations pollute our food, air, and water. Destroy these kids with chemicals and heavy metals and etc. And could it be that your daughter, Kat, volunteered to be part of that? And would that be worth a soul's suffering and your suffering for the blink of an eye and the span of eternity if we turn things around? Alex, you had raised your hand. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, so it's very fascinating question. And essentially, the first thing I want to mention is one of my favorite books, which I know is also yours, Mark, is the book by Michael Newton, PhD, for Journey of Souls, where they have a huge number of people under hypnosis, which really recall very similar sort of pre-birth planning, shall we say. So souls tend to plan their lifetimes. And so this is very interesting because it shows that life is not random. And even though there is free will, it seems like, if you want to, it seems like souls actually plan certain things in a lifetime that's upcoming. For example, if you want to do skiing or something, and you plan to go on a skiing trip in 6 months from now, there needs to be snow, but you still have the free will whether to actually do the skiing or whether just to, get drunk or something and completely waste their entire experience. So that's the first thing. It's sometimes difficult for us whilst we're here without that memory of planning, and that someone suddenly passes away and it seems like a tragedy. But a lot of the time, it seems like there's actually a bigger plan. And so certain souls also plan when they're going to get out. And sometimes I sort of, and then zooming out a little bit, is that I'm really working right now and studying over 30 different fields of scientific endeavor, from quantum physics to near-death experiences through to hypnosis and placebo effect. And the one one picture that emerges of our reality is that essentially at the very foundation, everything is just consciousness. Your consciousness, and we're all those sparks or rays of one field of consciousness. And because of its nature, it's almost like one thought of you are separate can actually create an entire virtual reality kind of universe where you get to experience exactly that separation. It has to be an experience, however, because it's not possible to be separate from the source and from what you really are. But it energizes an experience that you then have to work through to get back to source, to understanding your true self. And so that's the kind of zooming out. And so I kind of compare this lifetime experience almost to like when commercial airline pilots, I'll just finish this quick bit. When commercial airline pilots, when they actually need to fly passengers safely, they do not get behind real planes these days. They actually get into full motion virtual simulators. And for the entire 2 years of their programs, they spend 99% flying in VR. And they do this so that basically it's faster, it's also very safe. They're always in a safe environment. But what's very interesting about it is that they actually don't just have easy flights. Most of their experiences revolve around engine failure, some catastrophic events which they train for, so that in real life, when they go and actually fly passengers, they can actually overcome the most difficult of challenges. And so it's almost like this human experience is kind of analogous to that, is that souls don't just choose an easy flight. They choose sometimes extreme challenges because they grow. And when they, go to the other side, they're able to then serve others and themselves in much greater ways. And so when we recontextualize it this way, we realize that these extreme challenges and pain and suffering are for a greater cause, shall we say, for evolution of that person and those around them. And it is not a random happening. It seems to be a planned sort of thing, how consciousness evolves. So it's all good. It's all God, basically, as Mark says.
Yeah, an evolution of the cosmos. Creator is not a static entity. So Gina, you can see, to learn more about what he's talking about, pre-birth planning, see article number 25. And then you can use, excuse me, the pre-birth planning audio program under shop. However, because of your amount of sadness, I would use the holistic breathing technique first for a month to get more clear. And then your pre-birth planning technique, I think, will reveal to you what you're looking for, and set the intention beforehand. Okay, I'd like to understand why my daughter passed, such a young age and all that, and then see what you discover. And always feel free, and the same way with all of you. You have questions about that, email me, mark@soulproof.com. All right, this is wonderful energy, Joan. Yes?
I just wanted to validate for Gina that what comes across to me in your grief is something that I've experienced also, which is I raised my granddaughter. My daughter was not dead. She was doing substance abuse. So we took control of my granddaughter. And the grief that I heard you saying is kind of, to me, it was double grief, because I was grieving the loss of my daughter's life before she lost her life. And then you have to also be there for your grandkids. And it seemed to me like I couldn't properly grieve because I was focused on raising my granddaughter. So I think you have kind of a double thing going on right now, but I just want to assure you that there's great good that's going to come out of the situation, because now that I'm past raising my granddaughter, she's a wonderful person. She reminds me of my daughter, and it's a great situation. So that's the current life bonus that I got from raising my granddaughter. And it's hard to think about that when you're in the thick of it and you're still grieving your own daughter's death. But it will get better, I guess, is my message to you. We'll get better. And it really does help me to know that I made a plan to experience certain things in this life. And I knew that my daughter was part of that plan. So I'm grateful to her for that experience, because I've grown a lot spiritually as a result of my soul plan. And you'll get to that point too eventually. I just wanted to
Beautiful.
shed a
Thank
little
you.
bit of light in your corner. Thanks.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
By the way, this is the official ending time for those who have to go. We understand. However, I am willing to stick around and answer questions and discuss until there's no one left. So anyone else have questions or would like to share something? Janie, yes.
Gina, this is a little different but similar. I had a miserable childhood with being raised by a narcissist mother who was a gaslighter. It was all I could. Oh, she left. Did she leave?
Yeah.
Did she leave?
No, I'm here.
Okay, sorry. And I started thinking about why did I go through that? Why did I have to go through that as a child when you're dependent upon a narcissist and a gaslighter and no empathy? And what I'm realizing in my adulthood is it messed me up so bad that I have had to work hard to undo what it did to me. And one thing it did to me, she just put me on crutches. I was scared to death to ever live alone. Because when you're gaslit as badly as I was as a child, you don't have any confidence in yourself. Well, I faced that. I faced that between the second and third year that my husband transitioned to the other side. And now I'm doing wonderful. I can live alone. I can do all this. So now I see that there was a benefit of having been a dependent child of a narcissist, gaslighting, no empathy, cruel mother, that I have grown because I was willing to face it. And I faced so much and I'm better for it. And also, Gina, I think along this line, if you've ever watched somebody die, I'm going to use the word die, their body dies, it's kind of gross. It's awful watching my husband's body go downhill and become skinny, and he had rigor mortis on 24 hours before he left his body. So it was really yucky and awful. And I think we tend to see these things like we see a dying body. But I have learned for myself, and that's all I can speak of. There's nothing black and white, but there are opportunities I notice in my life to learn. So when difficult things are happening, I've learned to say, okay, I hate what I'm experiencing. I hate what I'm seeing, but what can I learn from it? So that is the way I'm getting through it.
Thank you, Janie. And that's one of the messages that emerged when we interviewed 130 of these Shining Light parents is, yeah, they suffered, they had sadness, all that. And also they chose to look for the silver linings. So that's a clear path. Maria, you have your hand up there.
Yes. So I wanted to get your input. I've talked to you a couple of times, and you may recall my son passed away this year and has profoundly impacted.
Is that Anthony?
No, Andrew.
Andrew. Okay.
My life. And I wanted to get your input on, I mean, it has profoundly impacted me on many levels, but one level that I see is my soul's like evolution, you know, opening up to my inner self, you know, to my soul's purpose. And it has just triggered like a direct path that I need to do this. And so my question is, sadly, my son's death has taken me to a higher level, but I'm struggling. Would that have happened without it, or did it need to happen, with him passing?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's only been a few months, right? March?
Exactly. Your good memory.
There's a few brain cells working. Well, it's not been that long. So for you to even be asking this question, pat yourself on the back. I mean, you're
Well,
doing amazingly well. So say it again, please. What's the core of your question, what you're struggling with a bit now?
so I'm struggling with, did my son's passing, did it needed to happen in order for my soul evolution, or is that something hand in hand that happened, that took me to the next level of my soul's evolution and my soul's purpose? I feel that his passing has profoundly affected my soul's advancement and purpose. And I'm a totally, every day I see myself, Mark, I'm a totally changed person, or I'm evolving into a different person. Let's put it this way.
Yeah, well, it sounds like it can be both, not either or what you're describing. Some of the most amazing parents and helping parents heal, several of the board members, their kids died because their kids' bodies died because they fell asleep while driving. And you want to talk about guilt and beating themselves up, but then through different mediums independently, and then their telepathic communication with their kids, they realized that their kids passed in part to help them, the fathers, wake up, because the soul of the fathers had a tendency to walk through this earthly experience, stay stuck in spiritual amnesia. And at first, of course, they felt, oh my God, it was my fault. You know, hadn't been for me being such a clod of a soul, my kids wouldn't have passed. But it's really not like that from the big picture of things, because your son's soul also benefited in different ways. So it helped you. That doesn't mean you had to have it, and didn't mean he was like, okay, I'll die early so mom can get with it. It's not like that. But you benefit, he benefit, and other benefits you can't imagine. One of the things we hear that are so beautiful from parents is that when their child's memorial service and they get to see the impact their child made, they get to hear stories. You know, when I was going through my toughest time, Andrew was my friend when others, you know, didn't want to be around me, and how he touched so many people. So like Alex just said, it's all good, it's all God. You can do the Ask Your Soul technique. It's actually called Ask Your Soul, Angels in the Light, article number 71, and then the audio program, and set the intention. Okay, I would like to understand more why. What was the plan behind this? And then see what pops up. You always want to look for what pops up. It's not your brain thinking.
And you mentioned audio number 25 as well.
Yes, yeah, and that's for the pre-birth planning. So those are two different ways to access your inner knowing, see the big picture of things.
Okay.
But again, for March, you're amazing. You're a rock star already.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Well, this is just wonderful and priceless. And I think this is a very good example of what it's like in the next realm. People get together and discuss and learn and grow and share and help. And, you know, we're doing it here. I love it. Anything else before we close for today? Mark, yes.
Yeah, Maria, I wanted to follow up on something you said, and first off, I agree completely with Dr. Pitstick, what he told you. In all the readings I've done, every spirit tells me there's a day we're coming in and a day we're going out. That's what's fixed. And what we have free will over is the time in between. And a good friend of mine, Dr. Mary Neal, she had a horrific near-death experience where she was canoeing in Chile and she got trapped under a waterfall and was underwater for 30 minutes. Her legs broke backwards. I mean, just reading it is terrible. And she went into the light and she met many spiritual beings, and she said she felt so good she didn't want to come back. And it was shown to her that her son Willie was going to be killed. They didn't give her a date and a time. They said, but the divine power, you can call this God, told her this is what's going to happen, but you have to go back, and your life mission is to teach people the joy of belief in the divine and following a spiritual path. Now, there's a lot more to this, and I've written about it. It's going to be in the International Association for Near-Death Studies Vital Signs magazine in August, and also Best Holistic Life magazine, and both of those about Dr. Mary Neal. And I mean, the story itself is amazing, but within 10 years, her son Willie was walking down a road, and another young man wasn't watching, ran off the road and killed him. Devastation. But now she's on this spiritual path. That did not have to happen to make her be spiritual. It was going to happen no matter what.
Okay.
Taking this to you, and because the reason I want to talk about Dr. Mary Neal is I'm seeing so much of her journey in you. Your son was going to die when he died, no matter what. That was the day he was going to die. And no parent, none of you should ever, ever have to go through this. But one of the realities of living in the material world is that our material life existence ends. We have one life and it's eternal. So we come into this life and then we transcend. Okay.
Mhm.
What and Mary also talked to me because we spent a lot of time together. She said, I also realized how little control I really have over everything, other than I had to make the decision. She could have gone back and just been a doctor and been a skeptic like she was until she had this experience. You could choose the angry path, the miserable path, the I hate everyone, nobody understands me. I think I need to start drinking tequila 8 times a day path. Okay. And I'm not being funny about that. I've seen this my whole life, but you haven't. So no matter what, your son was going to pass, and the choice that you've had is how you react and are reacting to this. And because of that, it gave you the option. There are doors in front of you. Which one will you open? Anger, self-pity, perpetual victim, or enhanced spirituality? Which one did you choose, Maria?
Enhanced spirituality.
Precisely. And you had a choice not to go through that door, but you did. And what Dr. Pitstick said, and it's always weird for me going to funerals because the spirits know that I can see them and they come to me, and it's inappropriate to run up to the family and go, oh, they're here because that's they got to deal with all of that. Because everyone shows up at their funeral. I mean, wouldn't you? I want to see
Yeah.
who's there, and they're also happy. Spirits are always so damn happy. We're the ones that are miserable, okay? Because that's part of, living here in the material world. But when he said, even when a baby dies, it's the proverbial pebble that falls in the pond and the concentric circles and how it touches everyone and how many people your son Andrew touched. And even though his physical body may not be functioning, he's still affecting people because of your new path and what you're doing. And let me tell you something. I have it on good advice from Andrew that you're just at the beginning phases of what you're going to be achieving in helping other people in grief resolution. You've got to continue on this path, and within 3 years, Andrew's effect on people is even going to rock your world.
Wow.
Thank you, Mark. Yeah, and one reason I'm giving Mark an open mic is he's one of the most intelligent, loving, well-trained mediums, but he's also hilariously funny. I mean, this guy cracks me up. So, honored to be here. Maria, I'm not a medium. Andrew didn't tell me that. By the way, did you all catch where you watching Mark's face when he said, And he went, 3 years. I love watching mediums talk because their eyes will shift somewhere, or they won't look at you. They're looking into a different realm, and where he got that. But Maria, after working with you a few times over the last few months, I can already see your trajectory. So I agree. You're going to be amazing. You're going to help so many people, and that's part of what you two planned.
You know, I'm getting those downloads messages, Mark, and it's difficult emotionally, as a mom.
Yeah, you think? Yeah, I mean, yes, absolutely. It's overwhelming what you're going through, but you're going through it. Winston Churchill is such an interesting character, really involved in the paranormal. I do a whole lecture on him. But he said, when you're going through hell, keep going.
Oh, that's good.
Thank you so much. Best messages so far.
I like that one. Oh boy, what fun. Anything else? Lindsay, you're looking awfully energized. Is there anything you want to share there, dear one?
Thank you. This is my first time in the group, and I'm just enjoying the stories. I lost my twin sister a year ago, and I think that it's been a struggle to understand why she left. I'm just like mad because I always felt we were supposed to get old together, and now I'm not able to do that with her, although I feel like she's, with me, and like we've talked about, she is experiencing my life with me. And another thing to kind of share that's interesting is about a year before she died, something led me to be very, very interested in being a death worker. I took a class on death doulaship, and have kind of been like somewhat obsessed with learning about death work. And then she died, and the class that I was in led me exactly through everything I needed to know to get my family through her ceremony, and what to do with her remains, all of that stuff. I just found it very cosmically interesting. So yeah, I know that there's big reasons for why it's just hard to accept. I'm still kind of like, I can't believe this is what's happened, but I understand.
Yeah, well, first of all, isn't it interesting that you were led to get that training for your sister's passing to prepare? My fiance Andy is an evidential medium. She trained with Mavis Patella for 4 years, and Mavis said that the time varies, but on average, souls, people in the next realm, know around 6 months before something's going to happen. So perhaps your soul knew that was coming, had some precognition, prepared you. The other thing is, what you're describing, on one hand, you understand there's a good reason for it. On the other hand, you're in shock. And that's the reason for that. And that's your brain-based consciousness and transcendent source of consciousness I mentioned. So the holistic breathing I mentioned, I know I mentioned a lot of things, but article number 70, and just cry your heart out and get that out, and that'll help you get more clear. So sure, it's totally human on one hand to say, we're going to grow old together and be buds and all that, but that's what your brain thought was going to happen. Maybe even your heart hoped would happen. But now your soul understands, okay, here's what's happened. Here's how we're going to deal with it. I'm going to deepen my connection with her, so you'll continue to have a very real and meaningful communication. And by the way, you can do that. If you see article number 9, I have what's called an afterlife contact audio program. And about 75% of people, first time they use it, have a meaningful connection, seeing, hearing, feeling, or knowing in a loved one. And then you just expand, so you continue with her. And the other thing is, Dr. Schwartz now says it's not a matter of if there will be communication technology in the future. typing with, talking with, seeing like we're doing now. It's just a matter of when. So you'll be in greater touch with her, hopefully in a couple years. So hang in
Can't
there on
wait.
that. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Holly,
It's Holly. It's not Hallie, right, Mark?
I did it.
I love that. I was like, no, call me Hallie. I put it in the chat room, but I just wanted to reference that our other fabulous Mark, who was talking about Dr. Mary Neal. I just read that story, that book 2 weeks ago, and it's called To Heaven and Back. And I just I put it in the chat room, but I didn't want anybody to miss that, because hearing it all about, she's a good friend of yours, Mark, and then having just read it, it's a fabulous story. And because we're talking about this, and Lindsay, to what you just shared, I just wanted to ask either one of you, the Marks, but one of the pieces that I found fascinating in her story was that her son kept telling her, Willie kept saying he didn't think he'd live past 18 years old.
That's correct. And the reason I'm not telling you everything about the story I wrote, because she came to me for a reading. And it's really cool when you see how spirits and the messages you receive in a near-death experience then arc over to when Willie is in spirit. So there's more to this. Okay. And so I don't want to give away the spoiler alert, but it's really cool. And so I've written the story, Best Holistic Life magazine. I write for them every month, and so you can go bestholisticlife.com. But for the International Association for Near-Death Studies, I don't know how many people here are members. It's a great organization, even if I know Mark Pitstick is, even if you haven't had an NDE, these are the scientists that are studying survival of consciousness. And through understanding near-death experiences, it helps us realize that someone we love so much did not disintegrate. And their monthly magazine is online. It's called Vital Signs. And I wrote a more in-depth article for Vital Signs about Mary Neal, because Best Holistic Life, I have a word limit, okay? And also I'm writing for the general public, for holistic health. But for IANS, I'm writing for fellow researchers and scientists, and I went into great depth how it is that during an NDE and during spirit communication, spirits are able to perceive future events. Okay. And so, where's Joan? Is Joan here? Joan. Okay. I know Joan does a lot of work with spirits. For those of you who've engaged in spirit communication, have any of you had something transmitted to you, maybe from your loved one in spirit or during a medium or whatever, that didn't make sense until it happened in the future? Okay. Deborah's raising her hand. Mark, I know you live with a medium, so that's a yes. Okay. Who else? You will find that. And I explain that I go into great depth in my book, The Afterlife Frequency. It's all related to quantum physics, but I promise I don't write boring. It's not going to be like reading an algebra textbook. I suffered through too much of that in the practice of law. I promise I will not be inflicting that on any of you. But in the Vital Signs article, I do discuss the theory of relativity and how it relates to the ability of an electromagnetic soul, meaning a spirit, being able to perceive what we call the future. So anyway.
Love it.
Well, this is great. And now actually I'm approaching a time where I have to go. So let's close for now, but just hopefully you'll join us the next time, the second Tuesday of next month, where we'll be doing class 3. Thank you for telling others. Again, we're just getting going. We're kind of like doing a walkthrough here and preparing for the months ahead when exciting news comes out. So thank you for your part in that. God bless. Have a great rest of your day.